I'd like to thank a couple of people. For example, Linda Warbell, who's vice president here at St. Francis for Community Relations, and she's really the reason why we're able to do this every year, and we're all very grateful to her for that. It's been very supportive, and so I want to thank her. She's in the back there standing. I hope I got your title right. I don't know. But she is one of our vice presidents. Okay. Also, council member Stephen Levin will be arriving shortly, and when he does come, he's going to say a few words to you as well. But I just wanted to say a few things before we begin about our readers today. Put my glasses on if that's okay. Anyway, these the people who are reading today, and others who are also part of our class who, for one reason or another, weren't able to read today or be here. But this has been the most amazing experience for me. I've been doing this now for maybe, well, let's say around 10 years. But and some of the original students who were in my class are still here, still taking the class on Sundays, and I just find this has been an amazing experience for me personally. I know I'm their teacher, but I have learned so much more from them. They are, each one of them is my teacher, and it's been an amazing experience. I leave that class on Sunday afternoon just flying. I don't need any artificial stimulants. I have their inspiration and their writing, and they just mean a lot to me. The title of our reading today is Love, Hope, and Destiny. That's our theme. We're a little bit past Valentine's Day, so we had to add a couple of words there. So last year was love, this year is love, hope, and destiny. And I just want to say that as far as this group is concerned, there's a lot of love, especially on my part, and it's definitely destiny that we all came together and met and are able to be here every year. And the hope is that we all stay together for a long, long time to come. So anyway, thank you. We will begin, before our first reader comes up, I'd like to read a short poem by a young female poet from the 19th century named Emily Dickinson. And it's a poem that I think is pretty appropriate for today, and it's just it's one of those poems that just kind of, once you read it, once you learn it, it's just always in your mind, always in your imagination. It's called "Hope is the Thing with Feathers." Of course, Emily didn't really title her poem, so he took the first line of her poem. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chilliest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. And that's how I'd like to begin. Our first reader is Ellen Prescott, who always gets us started, not only today but also in our class. She's my designated leadoff reader, and she always gets us off on the right spirit of things, and really gets people excited about coming up and reading their work. She's a combination of things. She has the tender soul of a poet, and also the sharp wit of a satirist. She has that nice kind of combination. So, without further ado, Ellen Prescott.
Good afternoon, everybody. We all have a muse, one who lives within each of us. And there is Professor Mitch Levenberg, whose delightfully imaginative assignments, coupled with his wisdom and guidance, has inspired my writing experience. This short story was written based on one of those assignments. I call it A Brooklyn Angel, I hope it amuses you. This was Lolly's freshman year attending Arnold J. Beckman College of Humanities, a small, high-ranking experimental liberal arts college located in New Hampshire. She was to attend a demonstration lecture on trans mediumship through a controversial course being offered on Parapsychology 101. Lolly could feel the moisture on her hands and hear her heart pounding as she entered the lecture hall, passing without tripping an endless array of sneakers and what seemed to be long-legged jeans to the center of the first row, which was separated by a wooden partition from the speaker's platform where she was assigned to sit. This was the morning the famous Zelda Bartok, medium and clairvoyant, was to appear. Lolly was hoping she would have the nerve to ask questions, reviewing them in her mind if she was chosen from the audience. She stared intently at the prestigious pair, President Dewhurst and Zelda, as they sat down before a table on the dais in close proximity to her. Lolly thought Zelda was somewhat attractive, but not necessarily in a tasteful way, or dressed as she would have expected, wearing very tight black slacks, which emphasized her rotund stomach, and a too tight white see-through frilly blouse with puffy sleeves, further exaggerating Zelda's largeness. Lolly was surprised to see how brightly bleached blonde Zelda's hair was, given her 70-odd years, which was worn long to her shoulders with bangs, consistent to when Lolly had seen her on television and on her book covers. Her makeup was quite heavy, with false eyelashes and very red lipstick. She wore many silver bangles on either of her wrists, which jangled as her hands moved nervously, exhibited matching silver-polished long fingernails, while her exceptionally long crystal chandelier earrings glistened and dangled simultaneously to the bangles. Lolly thought, between the jingling and the jangling, Zelda was not only a sight to be seen, but she was a sight to be heard as well. And she couldn't help thinking of the sharp contrast between the preppy college president, who was casually but elegantly dressed in khakis, white shirt, and brown tweed jacket, and Italian beige suede Oxfords. The hubbub in the hall changed to a standing ovation, to a subdued whisper, as President Dewhurst introduced Miss Bartok, suggesting, "Get your pads and pens ready for this extraordinary demonstration of trans-channeling, students. As you may know from gossip on campus and against board advisement in developing our curriculum for this year, I have invited Miss Bartok as our guest speaker. What a remarkable opportunity this is to experience firsthand Miss Bartok's amazing ability to channel, to contact loved ones who have passed on. Indeed, something we know little about or understand as a phenomenon. Since this lecture is limited in time given, Miss Bartok's needing to return to California this afternoon, and while questions will be open to the floor, Miss Bartok has kindly agreed to channel for one person who has been chosen randomly from the class list prior to this lecture. Please turn off all cell phones. Is Miss Lolly Rubenstein present? Lolly's heart pounded even louder. Oh my God, they've chosen me. Her wish had come true as she stood up nervously, dropping her pen and pad. Oh, I'm so thrilled, terrified. Can I speak now? Louder, please, Miss Rubenstein, President Dewhurst responded, so everyone can hear you. And Zelda, looking at Lolly, smiled. Lolly noticed that Zelda's right eye was twitching quite extensively, and for a moment she perceived Zelda's vulnerability. But in true form, Zelda replied, "Go on, I am listening. Don't worry, darling. In Hungary, where I was born, the women in my family have been doing this for centuries. The ability has been handed down. Don't be afraid. I am ready for your questions." Breathless, Lolly could barely speak. Her voice in low tones began, I. "Speak louder, Miss Rubenstein," President Dewhurst encouraged. "Yes, sir," Lolly, clearing her throat, replied. "I do have some questions," as she gathered confidence. "My mother died suddenly last year from a heart attack. Me, my brother, and my father really never had a chance to say goodbye. I would like to know where she is now. I mean, did she pass over? If there is such a place, where is she now? Is she okay? Can you help me? Oh, Miss Bartok, I've looked so forward to seeing you, presenting these questions to you." "Thank you," Miss Bartok replied. "I certainly can help you. Once I make contact with your mother, the questions will be answered by her. What is your mother's name? Sylvia? Thank you." Miss Bartok closed her eyes. After several minutes, she replied, I will need total silence. Some of you are still chatting in the back of the hall. I can feel as well your intense, energetic enthusiasm. Thank you. But I will need your full cooperation in giving me silence. Thank you. When I make contact, Lolly, you will hear your mother speaking through me. She will take over my body. I, so to speak, go to sleep in the process and know nothing of what takes place. Now let me see, as she closed her eyes, repeating the name, Sylvia, Sylvia, Sylvia. There seems to be some resistance here. Do you have something of your mother's with you? Anything, something? Yes, Lolly replied. I'm wearing a ring of hers. I wear it all the time. It's my way of having me near her and for luck. Please, give it to me. I'll return it to you afterwards. Lolly handed the ring to Zelda, as Zelda held the ring in the palm of her right hand, closing her hand around it, resting both her hands on the table, then closing her eyes, said, I see. I feel her energy. Sylvia. I see, Zelda replied. I see. Suddenly, Zelda's body began to vibrate, then stilled. Her head dropped down while she held the ring in the palm of her hand. Then in a jolt, her head turned up. Hello? What are you bothering me for? Can't you let me be in peace, Lolly? Oh, Ma, Lolly replied. Ma? Incredulously, it's really you? Yeah, it's me. Who else? It's really you? Really, really? Yeah, so what do you want? Oh, Ma, I miss you so. What are you doing, Ma? Are you okay? I'm playing mahjong. What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm doing better now than ever before when I was living with you in Brooklyn. How are you and that idiot brother of yours? Another rocket scientist. And your loving father. I'm so glad I don't have to hear what's to eat 25 times a day. And then you with the crying and the tears for everything, with the nobody understands me bit. I understood you, but did you listen to me? No. Well, Ma, you know I'm sensitive. Yeah, sensitive, that's what you call it. And your brother Sheldon never knew whether he was coming or going. Everything was, we need to discuss it. The trouble with him is he's full of ideas, an overactive imagination. He's smart, but he has no depth. No depth. Do something with yourself, I used to say. And your father, he never wanted to get involved. He'd say, let me alone. I work hard all day. They'll be all right. What's to eat? This was a life? But Ma, don't, Mommy, listen. After Mahjong, I'm going to fly to China. But in your time, Earth time, it's no time. And I'm a good distance away from China, I can tell you up here. It's even further than Brooklyn. But that's how it works. I wish, and I just go. Me and your Aunt Ida are going to watch a big-time Mahjong game and competition. Boy, do they love to gamble in China. Come to think of it, what do you want anyway? If I know you, you have something on your mind. What? Ma, I just wanted to say goodbye and tell you I love you and to ask you what's in the stars for me. Since you're up there now, what am I, a fortune teller? You mean will you find the right one and happiness? Love, schmuv. You think love is easy? It's work. I love you too. All of you, and I'm glad to be rid of you for a while also. I'll visit you sometime, but I'm too busy now. I talk to your father all the time, and he doesn't know it, and he doesn't listen. But right now I'm flying around, enjoying myself with your Aunt Ida and the rest of the departed family. So don't bother me. As for you, what will be, will be. Stop worrying. Listen to your stomach, where your heart lives also, and follow it. It'll talk to you too. There was a moment of silence, with Lolly asking, Ma, are you still here? Yeah. I was thinking, what's your brother doing with the money we saved for him? Oh, he's going to open a soul food restaurant in New Hampshire near the college. What does he know about soul food? His friend Dexter? He met him through you in the college? Well, better than his floundering around with the big ideas, I hope. Dexter is down to earth. Get it? Down to earth. Tell your brother Sheldon to put stuffed cabbage on the menu. Yeah, Hungarian style, sweet and sour, like this Zelda somebody. Like I used to make it. He always loved to cook. He and Dexter will do all right with all kinds of soul food. And about this Zelda, did you ever see such a shape on a person? What kind of an outfit is she wearing? I wouldn't be caught dead dressed or looking like that. And at her age yet. I see, with your money, you're going to college finally. Good. Better than being a ballet dancer. You'll make a good teacher. Mary Bird also. You love each other. He's going to be an endodontist, and he'll make a good husband. Tell your father, Max, to stop moping around and join a gym and find somebody. He needs to be happy in his old age and go on a diet, or he'll be here with me too soon. And believe me, I don't need that yet. As Lolly responds, there is a loud, screechy overtone. Your voice sounds so funny now, Ma. What do you want? I'm talking long distance. But I want to go now. By the way, who are all those people around you and the handsome straight up and down guy? Little stiff with glasses, but good looking. They're my classmates, Ma, and the guy is the president of the college. I'm in a lecture hall. Oh, well, hello, everybody, and goodbye. Take care of yourself, Lolly. I love you. I love you too, Mom. Yeah. Name the first one with an S after me. Okay. See you, Mom. Yeah, but don't hurry. Have a happy, healthy life. And get the ring back from Zelda.
Our council member, Stephen Levin, has arrived, which is great. And I just want to say a few words before we proceed with our reading. Council member Levin will speak. Give a few words. Anyway, we're really delighted to have him with us today so that we can thank him publicly for his support of St. Francis. Councilmember Levin has secured grants through the New York City Department for the Aging, which subsidizes the college's creative writing class. Through additional grants, Councilmember Levin has enabled the college to grow its senior citizen programming. Each year, the Senior Citizen Program hosts hundreds of events almost every day, including swimming, Tai Chi, Pilates, yoga, world-class lectures, concerts, and movies. I'm sure many of you have probably attended some of those. Now these concerts and movies sound and look even better thanks to an additional capital grant from the City Council and the Brooklyn Borough President, which upgraded the sound, lights, and technology in this room. Many local community groups and not-for-profits are permitted to use this space with no rental fees. This all thanks to the leadership of Council Member Levin. We want to thank him for being with us since our first reading a few years ago. Not only does he lend financial support, but he lends us moral support and encouragement. He really has been a great support for us. I just wanted to say his love of the arts is definitely reflected in this, and his encouragement for all of us. I mean, again, his love of the arts, his love of learning, really important, and we're so glad he's here, and that he continues to do great things for us. So without further ado, which is becoming my favorite expression, I don't know why, Council Member Stephen Levin, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Levenberg. I'll be very quick because I want to have as much time listening to the poetry today as possible. So I'll keep my remarks brief. But this is I'm very excited to be able to join you guys this afternoon. This is the third time I've been able to attend the poetry recital or reading here at St. Francis, and after being in office now for 2 full years, 2 years and a couple of months, I reflect a little bit on kind of myself thinking, am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? Am I doing what the right thing to do? And this is an event, and this is a program where I feel that I'm able to be contributing and that I'm doing the right thing. One thing that's very exciting as I think about what great opportunities we have here in this neighborhood and in this borough and in this city in terms of our access to culture and our access to learning and to continuing to learn. There is so much available to us, and whether it's going to the museums that we have, or going and accessing the wonderful plays that are in. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, I went and saw Richard III at BAM, which was I had never seen Richard III before, and I had thought the last time I think I read Shakespeare I was in high school, and I thought maybe I won't quite get it, or maybe the language will seem so esoteric that I won't really get the impact of it. But it was extraordinary. It was a very violent play, and it's kind of a downer. There aren't too many redeeming qualities particularly in the title character. But it's really it's very exciting to think all this is so alive. The actor Kevin Spacey and the troupe that from the Vic Theater that brought it brought that character and that story really to life in a way that it's the 21st century. It's 2012. It was written in sometime in the 1600s, and it's just extraordinary. So I think that's something I'm really thankful to be able to be here in New York City and have access to such wonderful things. And I often think about what if I'm not in office for whatever reason, if I'm not, if I get unelected or don't get reelected, or and what I would do. And I think the thing that I would do is go back to school. In fact, I might try to go back to school even if I'm still in office. But I would love to be able to go back and really further develop my learning and kind of avail myself of the great resources that we have. And just one thing that I thought of as I walked in was the importance of taking on new artistic endeavors anytime in life. and I think of I have my great grandmother's brother. I don't know what that makes him to me. A great uncle. There's a guy named Eugene Jackson, and he was a teacher here in Brooklyn. He grew up in Brooklyn, and he was a teacher for his entire career. He did foreign language, and this is my Jewish side of my family. That's changed the name to Jackson, so they were the Jewish Jacksons. It's not a very common Jewish name, but they changed their name to Jackson actually sometime in the late 19th century to be named after a popular boxer of the era, I think. But they grew up. My great grandmother Edith and her siblings grew up in Ocean Hill and Brownsville and Bushwick and kind of moved all around. Eugene was a teacher his whole career. In his 80s, in his late 70s and 80s, started doing woodblock prints, and he did a series of woodblock prints, and I have one hanging in my living room that are so wonderful and it's joyous and really very good. And I think he did it at age 88. And it's this wonderful. It's a turkey. The image is woodblock print where there are turkeys at the Thanksgiving dinner table. They're the ones toasting, and all the humans are underneath the table. All the men are underneath the table, and it's called The Turkey's Dream. And then across it says "To Life." And I think of my great uncle Eugene a lot in terms of what a great thing it is to take up artistic endeavors at any point in life. And so I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be a part of the program today. And I'll sit down now and listen to some poetry. Thank you. I also want to just thank Professor Levenberg and St. Francis for their commitment to arts in the community and arts here in Brooklyn and really making it happen. So I want to thank St. Francis.
Good afternoon. I took this class on a sort of lark because somebody had told me years ago, my husband, that I was a very good writer. And I never really believed in myself enough. When I walked into class, I saw two people, and I was like, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? Now, if somebody told me on a Sunday that I couldn't take that class, I would be picketing in front of the city council and the police commissioner's office, you know? So, on this day, I'm writing about my 30th anniversary of my marriage to my husband. Love. L is for the loyalty and support you give me. O, open your arms to love. V is for the value of true love is priceless. E is for everything and more. Love is always, forever and a day. This is a reflection of my 30 years. Reflections. It has been said that love is kind, it is not selfish. Well, I guess I have experienced love for the last 30 years. You see, I have been married to my best friend for the last 30 years. He carries those traits into our marriage. Times have been rocky and sad, but we together have weathered the storms, laughed at the silliness of some issues, reveled in the beauty of a sunrise as another day opens to share our time together. True love is priceless, and the memories that are made from it will last a lifetime. Here's to another 30 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Florence Yukon. Did I get it fuzzy? I have two short pieces. They are prose. Thank you. First class. My neighbor, Deborah, drove me to college in Mendocino to catch the airport shuttle bus. No, Florence, I wouldn't think of letting you wait here at this hour. I feel bad taking your money. We're friends. Thanks loads. At the airport, the ticket agent was efficient and pleasant. You're checked all the way to Fort Myers, Florida. Yes, indeed, Miss Yukon. You have an aisle seat. Just walk to the end of this counter and turn right. Gate 41, not far. I had plenty of time, so I browsed among the books and newspapers. I know the shop. I go there every time I have a flight. Oh no, I didn't even open that book about an accident in flight. I guess it's fiction, I hope. I leafed through books by Alice Walker and Stephen Ambrose. My seatmate from San Francisco was a woman who ran a bed and breakfast. Oh yes, she said. I serve fresh hot muttons, muffins, and specialty breads every morning. Also, bacon and eggs. In fact, bacon and eggs with fruit. Breakfast is an important meal. My contribution to the conversation was to agree that a B&B that served a good breakfast was wonderful. If I ran a B&B, I called it the Weary Traveler. In fact, I don't want to run a B&B. I just want to call one the Weary Traveler. All passengers were required to change places in Cincinnati, change planes in Cincinnati. I had a bad feeling about this. A year ago, when my flight had originated in Cincinnati, they had searched me through and through. A strange man had put his hands in my purse and had rummaged into the personal things in my carry-on. I had been required to remove my shoes, but nothing else. Safety no matter. I had felt invaded. I couldn't help it. All right, I am not a terrorist. I am not going to become a terrorist. I am an ordinary passenger. Yes, ordinary. A large group of people waited with me. Just regular people, ordinary people. At any rate, most of us were ordinary. Most of us did not move when they called the first class to board. We were ordinary. I spoke to the woman at my elbow. Suddenly, she had become a person of my own kind. First class, I said. I wish they'd use a different term. That always annoys me. Every time I take a flight, I plan to write them a letter. I got warmed up. I tried not to get on my soapbox. No success. I was raring to go. First class, we're all first class. Have you ever flown with JetBlue? They don't have first class. Everyone's equal. I like that. Suddenly, I heard my name called. Horrors! Are they going to search me? I gave the attendant my name. Miss Yukon, I have an extra seat. I'm putting you in first class. Thank you. Now this one is about my childhood. It's called 8 plus 8. 2 and 2 are 4. 4 and 4 are 8. 8 and 8 are 16. I learned that at Daddy Lee's knee. Daddy Lee, my grandfather, began my education with these sums. For 2 or 3 years, I remained famous for my sums, famous with Daddy Lee. Fame did not go with me to school. The teacher neither knew nor cared that I was famous with my grandfather. She gave us problems from the arithmetic book. One day, she wrote a test on the blackboard. We were to copy the problems and answer them correctly. Such things as 7 plus 7 were familiar, as were things like 4 plus 5. I did not like to use odd numbers. I did not like to mix odd numbers with even numbers. 6 plus 3 was not very good, even though 6 was a nice, smooth number. As for 7 plus 5, that was downright ugly. I did not know these things. I did not like these things. I liked my friends, the even numbers. I liked 8 plus 8. There were many unfamiliar combinations on the blackboard, and only one 8 plus 8. I developed a plan. I would replace each unfamiliar problem with 8 plus 8. The teacher would know I had miscopied. But she would see that my answers were accurate. Surely she would give me credit. Something went wrong. My mother was summoned to the school. No one asked me why I had done this. The family suspected that I was blind. At school, an investigation ensued. A lady who was a stranger took me into a little room. "Now we're going to play a game," she said. I knew it was not a game. The lady thought I was crazy. This grown-up was not being honest with me. I would not be honest with her. I would tell her nothing. She showed me many things from her box. I had to identify them. She showed me 2 balls, one smaller than the other. Was the large ball heavier than the small one? It was not. I told her so. I was not crazy. I was sent back to the classroom. 8 and 8 has remained my friend, not lost amid the other knowledge I have, yes, willingly learned since.
I'm Joseph Davis, and I'll be reading a story called Play Ball. The sign in the window read, "Computers on sale, all makes, Dell, Max, HP, and more." This is the store Carl told him about. It was small and shabby, situated between a pharmacy and a grocery. Jerry hesitated before he opened the door and entered. There were shelves lined with PCs and laptops from recognized manufacturers. Standing before him was a slender, middle-aged man with a sallow, pockmarked complexion. "May I be of assistance? As you see, we have much to choose from." "I thought I'd just look around. I'm not sure what I want." "That's quite all right. Call on me if you need my help." Jerry slowly walked around the store, which was more a warehouse than a consumer-oriented place of business. He saw the latest Dell, which had a good reputation, but he wasn't able to stay away from the MacBook Pro. It was going for $900, and it was easily $300 less than it would be. It's certainly hard to resist a bargain. "I see you're interested in the Mac. I wouldn't hesitate if I were you, for you'll find that it is something special." "How special could it be?" "It'll be a marvelous surprise. Are you prepared to purchase this computer? Let's do the paperwork, and you'll be the proud owner of a wonderful machine." That is how Jerry became the owner of a special electronic device. How special? We shall soon find out. He brought it home to the second floor of his walk-up apartment and placed it in his den on a table, plugged it into his modem. Above the computer was an ornate mirror, which had been heavy and difficult to mount on the wall. Someone referred to it as Italianate. Whatever it was handsome, and he was glad he picked it up at the Salvation Army. He looked at his new prize and was anxious to turn it on. He told himself that he deserved this to mark his 70th birthday. He had a 6-year-old Mac, which would be a backup. He attached the MacBook Pro to a modem and emailed Carl. "Wanted to let you know that I went to the store you recommended and bought a Mac. The screen is brighter and the sound is better than my old machine, and the price was right. The store owner said this computer was special, whatever that means. See you next week." Then Jerry started to explore the dock. He saw it had the usual icons, except for FaceTime, which was the name given to the camera, which his other computer never had. Out of curiosity, he clicked on the camera icon. The image on a desktop, which should have been his face, was that of a teenage boy. He was holding a baseball bat in his right hand. Looking closer at the boy's face, he he was startled to discover that this was him as a youth. He fell back in his chair in amazement. How did this happen? Was this what he meant by special? He was mesmerized as he watched his teenage self. He was an athlete when he was young. How he loved to feel the bat in his hands, driving the ball for a distance, possibly a homer. He smiled as the fielders chased the ball, as he rounded bases. Crossing the plate gave him a charge. Touch football, stickball, he was into sports. He watched Mickey Mantle, his hero, on his TV, thinking, I could have gone into the majors, but my weakness was fielding. Maybe more experience could have made a difference. After dinner, he returned to the Mac, which was disturbed by his neighbor playing loud music on his CD. Roger turned out to be an awful person to have next door. Despite the noise pollution, he returned to his computer, and this time he saw himself tossing a football into the air and catching it with a graceful movement of his hands. He thought of how athletes had been compared to dancers, how their bodies flowed in the execution of a catch or working the pitcher. In the days that followed, he became devoted to watching his young self. This went on for a week, seeing the boy wearing a football helmet one time, and at other times smiling and waving. Behind him was a field with some trees. He rarely spoke except to say hi. Sounds coming from next door got so bad, Jerry felt compelled to go out to Oscar's to treat himself to a decent meal, for he had been ordering in. He regretted that he never spoke to Roger about his disregard for others. That evening it went well. No loud music hurting his eardrums. He had ordered filet of sole, which was a treat. For dessert, he had a blueberry pie with his coffee. When he arrived home, Roger appeared to have visitors, and this time the noise level was at high decibels. The wall in the den was shaking from the carousing friends Roger had invited to his room. They may have been bouncing off the wall. He was shocked to see his mirror come off the wall and crush his new computer. Shards of glass, bits of the Mac desktop, and letters from the keyboard, which strangely spelled chaos, were scattered about the room. His chest was heaving. He feared it was a heart attack, and went to the bedroom to lie on his bed. He felt as if he were leaving his body. Was he dying? Harold, Chuck, and Freddie were getting ready for a game of touch football. They tossed the ball back and forth to each other as they waited for Jerry to join them. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lillian Rossi Meda, and I just want to say it's a privilege for me to be a part of this community of writers led by Mitch Levenberg, who encourages and invites us to voice memory and imagination. I have two pieces. The first is called The Blue Quilt. They are only scraps of what were once worn or treasured cloth, real or remembered, pinned, then stitched together, right-angled patches, rectangles and triangles, the geometry of simple lines, stars and box puzzles, each 9-piece square, a small map from then and now. All are shades of blue, the cornflower of my grandmother's apron, the pale blue of May crownings, the required blue-black of school compositions, the forbidden Waterman's South Sea ink sequestered in my school bag, the aqua prom dress, the murky blue at the footbridge in Venice, the teal bridesmaid chiffons, the navy blue of my father's uniform, cut and refashioned by my grandfather for my brother's first coat and cap. As I sew, I cannot help but think of my grandfather's hands, the in and out of the basting and stitching, chalk markings, the tailor shop with rows of threads, dizzying in color and number, the wearing of the foot-pedal singer, played like an old pipe organ, producing his livelihood, honoring his craft. Here are his relics, his thimble, his cutting scissors, some of his thread. Memories are remnants. The second piece is called The Shell, and it's for my father. And when your brother died, that man with hair as white as untouched snow, you grieved for what would never be, the dream of fishing, like the old days, brother with brother. That first week of fall, when still the siren sea called, there was something in your voice, and although it was a new term, and I didn't want to go, I did. You packed the same lunch you would have packed for him and you, peppers and eggs on crusty bread, a large thermos of coffee, 2 ripe peaches, and of course the smokes. I mostly read and watched from the beach. The old red fire pail at your feet, you cast your line and watched the ebb and flow. The cigarette sometimes dangled from your lips, but more often held in the air. The wisps of smoke curled towards the sea. At 4 o'clock, you only had 1 fish, not yet dead. And when you threw it back, the waves, those wild white manes, swept ashore a cadre of shells, indigo and pure white, a mermaid's hoard, a gift of bounty. And as the tide enveloped and swallowed them, you picked one up and held it in the air. You are long dead. I never fish. But if I hold the shell to my ear, it whispers your name. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kira Aronson, and I have a story about a goose. Christmas was over, and I was very sad. Not because Christmas was over, but because we ate the goose. That is, my mother and brother ate it, and some of the neighbors who came over, but not I. Even though it smelled delicious when my mother roasted it, and everyone praised the goose for the amount of its fat, I could not swallow a single piece of the meat. I remembered its slender neck in my hand when I fed him. The goose was fat because I fed him by force for many months. Stuffed pellets made of flour and water down his throat. My mother assigned this job to me, and whatever my mother told me to do, I did. I hated doing it because the goose struggled a lot and shrieked like the devil. But I was very patient and firm. I sat on a bench, held the goose between my legs, opened its beak, and placed a pellet in the back of his throat so that it slid down his long neck. Sometimes the goose bit me, but after a while he began to accept this daily routine and did not struggle too much. As time went by, the goose seemed to welcome me and said, "Ga, ga, ga, ga," whenever I entered the shed. I did not mind feeding him anymore, and the goose did not mind too much swallowing the pellets. We became friends. He got fatter and fatter until he could hardly stand up. Then 2 days before Christmas, my mother had the goose killed for our dinner. That had been the purpose of fattening him. During the war, we were hungry all the time, so now everyone thought that fat was good. I did not care. I did not want my friend killed, and I did not want to eat him. I went to the empty shed and cried for hours. Then my mother came and told me that she would get me some nice little bunny rabbits to feed. "I don't want any rabbits," I shouted. "You will kill them too." My mother left me alone.
Hi, my name is Pat Kirkby, and what I like most about Mitch's class is the fact we have such total freedom of expression And I love hearing all the different voices that we put into our work. I'm going to read you 3 short numbers. They're all interconnected. The first is, where is that girl? Where, oh, where did she go? I've searched high, I've searched low. I can't find her anywhere. She said, don't worry, I'll be there. Did you see her pass by? She's sneaky and can be sly. I know you would not lie. She can be hiding any place, a silly smirk upon her face. That girl has no sense of time. She'd rather write a rhyme, or read a book, or dinner cook, anything, rather than look at all her work left undone. While she lazes away the sun, her papers pile ever higher. To read them she has no desire. I'll have to catch her unaware. If it's the last thing I do, I swear I'll pin her down to do her work. There, in the mirror, I see her lurk. I've got you now, you lazy jerk. Your free time is over, I say. Now the piper it's time to pay. My reflection gazes back at me. I know she's right as right can be. No longer can I run away. My better self is back to stay. She's a nag on a duty call. Insists I can no longer stall. She caught me fair and tight. I have to do what's right. But I'll escape her another day when freedom calls me out to play. Part of what she's escaping is the downsized dilemma. Clutter, clutter everywhere. No space left, no spot bare. Piles of paper neatly stacked. Closets stuffed, clothes racked. Underbed storage all full. Wire baskets an easy pull. Kitchen cabinets no spare space. Room for more, not a trace. Walls hold my art collection. Mirrors cover the last section. Cookbooks, art books, statuettes fill shelves, armoires, as do my pets. A lifetime of collecting. Where do I start ejecting? My children travel life light. Nary a collector in sight. The antique furniture, no way. Forget all that stuff they say. Do I an effort really make to whittle down for their sake? Or leave it all as is intact? Let them worry after the fact. Problem is, if I decide to move elsewhere to abide, downsizing then falls to me. How to do it I fail to see. Best leave it all up to fate. For now, just procrastinate. And the last one is what the girl likes to do rather than work. She likes to write. Recap. Silently the shadows creep as nighttime stalks the day. Soon the last rays of light will reluctantly slip away. My days are as numbered as the last leaves of fall. I cannot fail to hear clearly mortality's call. Time speeds past where once it crawled in younger days. The decades have rushed by, years melting in a misty haze. The reflection my mirror shows is no longer the one I know. My heart and mind remember the visage youth did bestow. She still remains alive in me, that younger self of yore. Life then seemed so endless, full of adventure to explore. Love, marriage, children, loss, hard work, heartache, shared fun. I lived it all as best I could. Moments of despair, days of sun. Time soothes over pain living brings. Memories all enrich my mind. Love's laughter tugs my heartstrings. as life's last adventure nears. The cosmos plainly I do see, where glows a web of galaxies for spirits of discovery.
If you were to attend one of Professor Levenberg's classes, and I've been going for about, I should think 3 years, 2 to 3 years, you'd be astounded at some of the material. Children's recollections of childhoods in war-torn Poland, Germany. We have a musician, sailor, who regaled us with his stories of playing the clarinet on a destroyer, and a woman who was a child when her father was a forestry overseer in Georgia during World War II and producing wood for the war effort. So you never know what's going to turn up, but everything is received with affection and tolerance, even when we shouldn't be tolerated, really. He never lays the whip to our flank. So it brings out people saying, well, I think I'll take a flyer at this. I think I'll try it. Well, in keeping with today's readings theme, this is called Valentines. What is a Valentine? Who's to say? It needn't be a greeting card or candy in a red satin box. An expression of esteem can come to you on any day, in any form, and from the most surprising people, as the following will show. My sister Dorothy's boyfriend was an officer in the Queens College ROTC. He asked if I'd like a date to their spring dance with one of the new recruits. I said yes right away. Back then, there was no checking out of a fellow on Facebook before you committed yourself. A date was a date, and you took your chances. Truth to tell, I was no prize. A graceless teen, fresh from a girls' Catholic high school. I had been stunted, my fashion sense stunted by the wearing of grim uniforms for 4 years. Maroon linen in summer, and in winter, blue serge. A gray blue, the color of belted trench coats worn by Russian officials during the Cold War. My date arrived wearing his ROTC outfit with a big corsage box under his arm. He had a country boy's pleasant, open face, and he danced well. He was very attentive all evening, bringing me finger sandwiches to eat and refreshing my ginger ale a number of times. Later, he drove me home, and after a chaste kiss on the cheek on my front stoop, said goodnight. 2 days later, an envelope from him came in the mail. The stationery inside was white with red roses at the top, and he addressed me thus: "To the princess of my heart." The rest of the handwritten 2-page letter, much of it in poetry, was of a piece with that salutation. At first I thought his fellow recruits had gotten him to write it, hoping to snooker me into responding in kind. I didn't. Although he contrived to bump into me a number of times between classes, I can't remember now ever going out with him. Not that the letter was objectionable in any way. It was the ardent tone of it that disconcerted me. No boy had ever expressed himself so admiringly to me before. I never showed it to anyone, but I saved it for years, and whenever I read it, I was struck afresh by the incautious way he lay his feelings bare on its pages. How foolish of me not to have prized it for what it was, the most beautiful valentine from a troubadour a lady could ever have received. Not all valentines are made of paper. One of the loveliest I can remember was a spoken one. I had called an electrician listed in the local yellow pages. I explained to him over the phone that our basement was dimly lit with only a single ceiling fixture in the middle of the room. He arrived at the appointed day with a coil of BX cable and a number of white china light sockets. He was Asian, with a thin Fu Manchu mustache that fell from the corners of his mouth to below his chin. It suggested vanity, as did the immaculate sheepskin jacket he folded carefully over a chair. But his manner was shy. The job took a couple of hours, and when he finished, and I wrote out a check, we exchanged some small talk. The philodendron on my desk had drooped and turned brown, and for want of anything else to say, I chattered. "Poor thing, I'm afraid plants don't do very well in this house." He looked at me for a long moment, as if carefully considering a reply, and then lowering his gaze, as if reluctant to be so bold, he said slowly, "I cannot imagine that anything in your care would ever die." I was stunned. Touched by this extravagant, exquisite compliment, I could feel tears starting. I was a young mother and had dealt with a couple of minor emergencies that day and in the preceding days, and my frazzlement was probably apparent. Was he perhaps a Buddhist, and in his kindness contrived with his words to pour balm on my abraded nervous system? I was flustered, but finally managed, You are very kind to say that." And I showed him out and never saw him again. It wasn't a Hallmark greeting card, but who could ever forget such a peerless Valentine? A Valentine can even be made of wood, such as that given to me by an old fellow living at the foot of our street. He was in his mid-80s, but tall and thin and slightly stooped. We went from perfunctory greetings when he passed, always tipping his hat, to longer exchanges, in which he told me in a thick Italian accent of his World War II days in the Army, fighting in North Africa. One day he announced, "I'm a-gonna make you a birdhouse. I'm a-gonna make you one you see." About a month later, the bell rang. There he was on my stoop with the most spectacular birdhouse, although birdhouse scarcely describes it. He held in his arms a veritable avian apartment house. Almost speechless, I hope I managed an equally lavish thank you. The structure is mostly white, with a green platform and a green pitched roof. It is 2 feet wide, 1.5 feet tall to its roof peak, and is 1 foot deep. It has 3 stories with floors in between, and is finished, front, back, and sides, with no fewer than 20 round doors for the birds. Every single door has an inverted triangular red portico over it and a generous square red porch, as if to allow a bird to unhurriedly examine the premises before making up its little mind which opening to choose. The whole thing is trimmed with white columns that give it an antebellum Southern mansion look. Lengths of undulating white pie crust fencing have tiny irregularities, revealing that it was carefully cut by hand with a jigsaw. That part alone must have taken him weeks. Countless small stainless steel screws have held it perfectly true all these 30 years, for I never put it outside, as he suggested I do. It occupies pride of place on the top of a tall bookcase in my office. I believe a Valentine satisfies a yearning in the giver, allowing an unsophisticated heart for the first time to exuberantly write of its admiration for another, or providing the pleasure of knowing you've given hearts ease with your words, or securing a fond place for yourself in another one's memory. Each one of my Valentines surely achieved its giver's purpose.
Hi, I'm Ellie Mandel. The name of my piece is Waiting. Have you ever waited for a letter, a phone call, a text message, a car pickup, not knowing when or if it will come? The late bus or train, the line in the supermarket, the love letter or bill in the mail, the birthday card that never comes. We wait and we wait. We wait for a first date, first kiss, wedding day, birth of a first child, children from school, doctor's test results. We wait and we wait. The children's report card, diplomas, certificates, college acceptances, degrees, lawyer, doctor, teacher, councilman, to name a few. It happens, but we wait and we wait. Children's wedding days, new apartments, first-time grandparents, grandchildren's weddings, great-grandchildren. We wait and we wait. Now, in later years, with health failing, eyesight dimming, hearing loss, heart problems, arthritic aches and pains, affects many of us. And so again, we wait and we wait until we can't wait anymore.
Thanks for waiting, Kelly. Thank you. Anyway, I'm going to read a short piece, a short story. I really feel honored to be part of this group, so thank you. And the name of the story is Alaska, and it's my story about destiny. Is this all right? She assumed she had been named Alaska because she was born there. She never questioned it, not even once. Then, just like that, her parents died. Now she wanted to know, now that it was too late. No one else knew. She had an aunt named Virginia, but that was pretty normal. Not enough to assume that there was any pattern there, any real family inclination to name children after states. I loved her the moment I saw her. She said her name was Al, and I assumed it was short for Alice or something like that, so I never questioned it either. Until I noticed an application of some sort she had to fill out, sitting on the kitchen table that required the applicant's full name. I looked at it more than once, assuming she had mistakenly put her place of birth where the name should be. They all think that, she told me, or else they reject the application thinking it's some kind of joke, which it probably is. She was obviously down on herself. She grew depressed. She felt alienated, not a part of the Maine. I asked her why she didn't ask her parents why they named her Alaska. She said she didn't want to embarrass them. It could have been some irreparable mistake, she said. It could have been an irreparable mistake that they felt compelled not to rectify. When my mother got pregnant again, I got angry and said, "If it's a boy, will you call him Hawaii?" And then there was this deadly pall over the room. No one said a word. Only my mother screamed and grabbed her belly as if I meant to harm it, as if I meant to get even with them for giving me that name. So I never said another word about it, and I never told anyone my real name, not even you, until you saw it on that application. Though I suppose I left it there purposely, unconsciously, so you'd find it. I asked her why she didn't change it. Just go down to City Hall or wherever one goes and change it. But she wouldn't, because she felt she would be betraying her parents. For even in death, people are betrayed, because they obviously had their reasons, unless, of course, they just went crazy, unless they got drunk right after delivery and spoke to God, perhaps, and talked about how things weren't working out for them, and how one day they might move to Alaska and start fresh, since there was so much opportunity for a new start there. So that's why they did what they did. Once she was born, they would move to Alaska, except they never did. Things went back to normal. They sobered up and realized they weren't going anywhere. Not because they didn't want to, but because they were stuck in the mud of their existence. And more often than not, desire has wheels. So instead of leaving, they named her Alaska, because every time they called her name, it would keep the dream alive. The whole world would come alive in her, except it would also be dead at the same time, which could definitely drive someone crazy, even perhaps to an untimely death. Don't you think so? She asked. She was obviously being too hard on herself, I thought. Also, there was something different about her eyes when she said all this, and her voice, too. This was Alaska talking now, and not Al. She was quite outside herself. There was now this exotic and unpredictable turn in her imagination, which threatened our whole relationship. Needless to say, it had to stop. I couldn't have her speaking like this to our neighbors, telling them about stuck-in-the-mud existences and desires without wheels. They'd think we were both crazy and drive us out of the neighborhood. I liked this neighborhood, and I wanted to stay in it. Don't you think you might be getting carried away with all this? I asked. Don't you think you might be overreacting? Don't you think there might be a much simpler explanation to all this? I don't know, she said. There's much more behind this than we think. I wasn't named Alaska for nothing, you know. Her eyes were making me nervous again. They were the eyes of someone possessed, of someone no longer satisfied with focusing just on the surface of things, but of someone who had to get inside of them. I wanted to run for my checkbook and remind her of my balance, of the enormous financial potential of our days ahead. My God, I thought, this was no time to start measuring the worth of each other's soul. There'd be plenty of time for that once the children were grown and out of the house. I think this name has something to do with my destiny, she continued. Destiny, I thought. Didn't I promise her all the destiny she could handle? We were just settling down to a new life together in a new house with new neighbors who made less money than I did, which was now $40,000 per with the potential for much, much more. Could she be implying that her destiny was somehow different than mine? Wasn't it, after all, a joint destiny? A destiny laid out in the family plan? I even remembered an article I read, which frightened me, that said that young couples were starting to take out what they called destiny insurance, just in case that which was meant to be never is. Look, I told her, it's just a name. There is no destiny in a name. What would you know about destiny? She answered back. Your name is Ray. There is no destiny in the name Ray. Maybe you're right, I said, and maybe you're not. So why worry about it? Let me take you down to City Hall tomorrow and we'll change your name. Which one would you like? How about Alice? This way people can still call you Al and not be the wiser. Impossible, she said. It's too late. Too late for what? I asked. For us, she said. I couldn't understand why it was too late for us. If she wanted to keep the name, fine, I could live with it. It never bothered me in the first place. But why was it too late for us? You wouldn't understand, she said. Yes, I would. No, you wouldn't. Just by saying you would automatically means you wouldn't. I don't understand, I said. I know that, she said. And even if you did, it wouldn't make any difference. Why? I asked. Because it's too late. Then maybe it is, I said, and stormed out of the house. I went to a bar. I told the bartender my wife's name was Alaska. He asked if she was born there, and I said no. Well, then that's pretty weird, he said, and then I left. On the way home, I stopped at my friend Jerry's house. Jerry's wife's name was Barbara. No problem with that. Jerry was a very lucky man. Maybe some of this luck would rub off on me. Did you know, Jerry, I told him once he had gotten used to the idea of having been disturbed and had finally resigned himself to the fact that it was I sitting opposite him now and not his television, that my wife's real name was Alaska? He laughed, and then I could hear his wife Barbara laughing all the way from the kitchen. Once Jerry finally stopped laughing, he said, "Why?" "I don't know," I said, "because she wasn't born there." "Then don't you think you ought to find out?" "Why should I find out?" I asked him. "What the hell difference does it make?" "Look," he said, "you came to me. I didn't come to you." "You're right," I said. "This thing is just driving me nuts." Then Barbara came out of the kitchen and sat down with us. She came in wringing the towel she had been drying the dishes with. Jerry seemed more disturbed now than when I walked in. I figured he must have wanted to give me some advice about Alaska or about women in general. I couldn't help overhearing, Barbara said. No kidding, Jerry said. Then what do you think? I asked her. Maybe it has to do with her destiny, she said. Maybe she is destined for more than what she's got. My name is Barbara, and all I do is wash dishes all day. Maybe with a name like Alaska, you're supposed to do something else, something big. Don't listen to it, Jerry said. She is crazy. No, I mean it, she said. Maybe I'll change my name too. Maybe I'll change it to Asia. Yes, Asia. Would you like that, Jerry? From now on, you can call me Asia. The hell I will, Jerry said. Oh, you will, all right, she said. Then she got that same crazy look in her eyes that Alaska had, and she put her face right smack up against Jerry's and just kept repeating her new name over and over again. Asia, Asia, Asia. And then Jerry turned his face towards me and said, Look, Ray, I don't want to be unfriendly or anything, but maybe you better keep all this to yourself. And I said I would, and then got up and left. And even 2 blocks down the road, I could still hear his wife yelling her new name at him. When I got home, Alaska seemed a lot calmer and told me she had been thinking about it and had decided to change her name. You don't have to do this, I said. Yes, I do, she said, because you want me to, and I want you to be happy. What about us? Don't you want us to be happy? Of course, that's what I mean, us. But there was something wrong. I couldn't quite pinpoint it, but it was there. It's really very simple, I told her. It's just to change a few letters, and I'll be with you the whole time. Will it hurt? She asked. Not at all, I said. Just a little paperwork, and it's all over. Then I'll do it. The next morning, trying to pull out of the driveway, we found ourselves blocked by an angry mob of sign-carrying women. They were neighborhood women, and they looked to be somewhere between sleeping and waking, as if they had just been ripped out of their beds by an urgent collective phone call. No doubt they were coffeeless. No doubt they had forgotten their children and left them in their beds. I was frightened, but Alaska hardly seemed to notice. Stay calm, I told her. We'll get out of here if I have to run them down. I'd never once considered running them down. After all, mad or not, they were my neighbors. People like myself, and just as entitled to wake up on the wrong side of the bed if they wished. And besides, one does not run down his neighbors unless he absolutely has to. But why us? Why did they choose our driveway to block? Then I noticed her as they began to move closer. Actually, it was the one leading the pack who began to move closer. The first one to actually enter our private driveway. It was Jerry's wife, Barbara, who stood there wringing that same dish towel as the previous evening, when she had first changed her name to Asia, wringing it with the same breathless anticipation of a strangler on his first day. When our eyes first met in the rearview mirror, I knew it was me she was after. I put the car into reverse. Perhaps it would be difficult to run down someone named Barbara, I thought, but Asia was a different story. Asia's had been run over before. Then, looking again into the mirror, I noticed a sign behind Asia which read, Free Alaska Now, and then another behind that one which read, Angela No, Africa Yes, and still another which read, Ethel Then, Europa Now. Then Alaska, who hadn't said a word nor moved, now suddenly leaned over and turned off the car. Relax, she said. It's me they want. You? I asked. Yes, she said. Can't you see they're here to save me? Save you from what? Save me from you, she said. So that's how it's going to be, huh, Al? I asked. That's right, she said. And don't call me Al. Then she left the car, but did not slam the door. She wasn't angry. Calmly, more sure than I had ever seen her, she walked towards the waiting mob. What she saw and what she was thinking was beyond me. I admit that even now I tried to see what she saw, to look at things in a different way. I stared at our house, and then I tried to look into it, and I saw many different rooms and kids in each room, and each one wanting their own little destinies. And I got a little scared, and just looked at the house again, and still it was just a house, with a still dead garden in the back. Then a great cheering went up, and I watched again in the rearview mirror as Asia greeted Alaska at the threshold of the driveway, and how the women mobbed her, crying, Destiny, 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 and lifted her onto their collective shoulder, carrying her away, down the block, out of the neighborhood, into the future perhaps, leaving the driveway unblocked for me to drive away, to drive as far away as possible. You see, my name was Ray, and so what destiny could there be for me? Thank you. Unfortunately, it's destiny that this program had to come to an end. But thank you all so much. Can we have another round of applause for our readers? They were so wonderful.